Hey, it's Gothy, and I'm doing a book review. It's been a little bit of time since I've done one of these. Recently, I've had a bit of trouble sort of reviewing books and like talking about them and stuff because I try to do it as best I can without spoilers. Doesn't always work that way. So, this book, unfortunately, is not going to be any different because it's the 11th book in the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. So, you can't really talk about this without some spoilers, so I will let you know when I start talking a bit more in depth and where there's a possibility for spoilers. So, yes. Right, so as I said, this is the 11th book in the Vampire Chronicles, and I want to start by saying I am so happy that Anne Rice is writing Vampire Chronicles again because I wasn't a huge fan of the werewolf series that she started. Um, this one I loved, I really did. It's about vampires all over the world who start hearing this voice, and this voice is telling them to kill other vampires and burn them down, use their fire gift. Um, yeah, and then this book takes you sort of get point of view of a lot of the vampires that she's written about in the past. So Lestat and David and Jesse show up, and you've got Armand and Benji, and yeah. So it's really good. It's got lots of different points of view. Um, I really did enjoy this. It was really good. It sort of takes place after, technically after Queen of the Damned, and I don't mean the movie. I mean the actual book, because the book has a slightly different outcome than the movie does. Don't get me wrong, I love the movie, but not because it's like the book, because it's not at all like the book. So, yes. This is where it's going to get sort of a little spoilery. So if you haven't read the Vampire Chronicles, like I said, the movie doesn't count. Um, unless you're okay with being spoiled. I'll see you later. Alright, so at the end of the Queen of the Damned era, Makare, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but Makare, who is Moharet's sister, takes in Amel, who is known as the Sacred Core, and that is what makes a vampire a vampire. So if Amel, like if the vampire holding Amel dies, and someone doesn't take Amel in, all vampires are destroyed. So it happened in the early parts of the Vampire Chronicles where Amel convinced the person who was taking care of the Queen and the King of the Damned, which is Akasha and Enkel, to drag them out into the sun to kill the lesser vampires. Everyone always sort of thought that it was because he got sick of taking care of them, pretty much. But in this book, they're sitting there going, what if Amel was conscious at that point and convinced this guy to take them into the sun? Because in this, the voice, who turns out to be Amel, this sacred core, he's telling all these powerful vampires, these older vampires, to go and destroy baby vampires, essentially. And they theorize that it's because the more vampires there are in existence, the weaker he is. So he's in Makere, and she's mute. She had her, I think she had her tongue cut out by Akasha. Maharet is blind, I believe. But she's sort of chill. Like they sort of think of her as being somewhat brain damaged because she doesn't always seem that she's there. So he's begging all these vampires to come and kill them and take the sacred core into themselves because he's stuck, he's trapped, he's become conscious because while he was in Akasha, he was mostly unconscious. So now he's conscious and he wants a new host because he feels trapped in Makare because she doesn't do much of anything. She's not exciting. He can't see through her. He can't speak, that sort of thing. So he ends up convincing another older vampire to come, and the older vampire kills Maharet and kidnaps Makare, but um, doesn't take the core into himself. It ends up being Lestat that does in the end. So I'm really hoping there will be a 12th book and that it will follow on from this one, because I want to know how things go with Lestat carrying Amel, because especially like in this, Amel was like really, really getting into people's heads and like trying to make them destroy other vampires and stuff. And yeah, we also find out I don't know if he was mentioned in any of the other Vampire Chronicles, but there is a vampire doctor scientist named Farid, and he's been, studying vampires and stuff like that. He was turned into a vampire by an ancient vampire named Seth, and like, he's pretty much just been studying vampires and stuff, and he ends up having Lestat come in. And, he takes samples from Lestat and stuff like this. And this is like this is like a little bit before all the shit really starts to go down with Amel. But, he ends up trialing something that allows Lestat to, sexually speaking, function like a human. Basically, it makes him create a seed and be able to put that seed in someone else. And he does. He goes for it. And the result is Lestat ends up with a son. And he doesn't know until towards the end of this, because the vampire that was going to take Amel, the one who killed Maharet, kidnapped his son. And says, "Oh, I'll swap your son for the doctor, because the doctor's going to help me get the sacred core into me." Yeah. But he ends up with a son, which is really interesting. And they end up, the son and another human girl that Lestat had been caring for over the years, end up being turned into vampires in the end of this. So, yes, like I said, spoilers. So I'm really hoping that there will be another book, because I really want to know how Lestat goes carrying the Sacred Core, because, like, the Sacred Core, Amel, he was, like, really adamant on killing a lot of vampires, because the less vampires there were, the stronger he is, basically. And he just seemed to be really aggressive and, really violent and stuff. And then he comes into Lestat, and the little bit of time in this where he's with Lestat, he seems pretty calm. He doesn't really seem to stress out about it too much, and he just kind of stays quiet and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, I'm very curious to see how that ends up. So, yay, Vampire Chronicles. More Vampire Chronicles, please. And actually, Anne Rice is apparently writing a 4th book for the Beauty series. Anyone who doesn't know what the Beauty series is her BDSM retelling of Cinderella. And I quite enjoy it. I mean, BDSM fiction is very much hit and miss. Thank you, Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. But the Beauty series was one that I always really enjoyed. And yeah, I would like to see what happens in the 4th book, because I believe it will be coming from the kingdom that Beauty ends up creating for herself. So, yes. More Anne Rice. Yay! I like Anne Rice. It's definitely my favourite vampire fiction author. I mean, there are other ones that are really good. Christopher Pike and his Thirst series. I do enjoy the Darren Shan series. And there's Christopher Golden and Christy Golden, who have both written vampire fiction. They both write for World of Warcraft, for StarCraft, and for Star Wars. So I thought it was really interesting that they have that sort of geeky sci-fi gaming sort of stuff, and then they've got vampires. What other vampire ones do I really like? There's more than that. I have a ton of vampire fiction. Some of it I haven't read yet. Like, I haven't even begun the Vampire Academy series yet. I really should, but at the same time, I watched the movie, and I know never judge a book by its movie, but it just seems like it's more of a drama than a vampire story, vampire fiction. So I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that. But that is it for Anne Rice Prince Lestat. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I wish I could have given it more stars because it definitely deserves it. I love Anne Rice. I love her Vampire Chronicles, and yes, more Vampire Chronicles. I'm just waiting for a shorter paperback to be released so I can buy a copy for myself. This is a library one. Because this book, like the Anne Rice collection that I have for all my Vampire Chronicles, they're not all the same edition, but they're all the same height. And they're all about this high, so this one will look very odd on my shelf, and I do not want that. I want all of my Vampire Chronicles the same height, and I do not want to have to go and replace all the other 10 books that I have just to fit this one. So, yes. That's it for me, and I will see you guys next time.